Welcome back to Concerning the Community. I'm Megan. I'm here again with Captain Dean Rondeau of the Wolfeboro Police Department. We're sort of continuing our conversation that we started in the last program about sort of the awareness that needs to start happening in relation to the war on drugs and drug abuse and everything underneath, specifically the heroin problem that seems to be swamping the state, so to speak. So last week we briefly discussed that there was a new initiative coming out from the Wolfeboro Police Department, and so you're going to talk about that a little bit this morning?
Absolutely, yeah.
All right, so what are you guys doing? Now I understand it reflects a little bit of what Laconia has been doing.
It does indeed. There's some changes to it. Of course, we don't have the resources that Laconia has, but
right.
we're very excited about it. And the viewers will get to take a look at the slides that I have for you.
Mm-hmm.
But when we look at the slides and we look at the big drug problem and how do we get at that, there's a number of different lines of effort that we talked about. One was the prevention education, the second was law enforcement, the third was treatment. Not one is any more important than the other. And
it's a trio.
It's a trio, and they're all equal and measured, and we get at the problem the same way. Now, the Wolfeboro Police Department fully sees this, and that's reflective in my slides, fully sees this as a disease once it manifests itself in a host. And specifically what I'm talking about, not just the drugs and drug abuse, but specifically the heroin piece to this, or the opiate addiction. It is a disease. It gets in, it takes root, it takes hold in a host, and it doesn't leave. And we firmly believe in treatment, and because we want to stop the stem of addicts in the pipeline, and one way we can do that is by ensuring that those who are in need of services get those services. Now, and I'll talk a little bit more about that holistic approach here in a minute. So what we have decided to do is and given full credit to the Laconia Police Department Officer Eric Adams, whose program this really, we are essentially piggybacking.
He's really been a spearhead for.
Absolutely, yeah. And what a great what a great initiative that was essentially the brainchild of the Laconia Chief of Police, and he gave a lot of left and right limits, a very broad left and right limit to Officer Adams to execute the plan as he saw fit. And Officer Eric Adams has done a phenomenal job at thinking outside the box. And because one thing is for certain, and I've said this before, Megan, we're not going to arrest our way out of this problem.
Yeah.
This is
and it's important to keep repeating that.
Way too big.
It doesn't end with you guys completely.
It
really
does not.
It goes back to the trio comment. It really is about implementing as many things as possible on as many levels as possible. Absolutely.
A whole of society approach. So what we've done is, and we're in the process of partnering with Melissa Farnold and her Safe Surroundings company, which for those of you who may not know, Melissa Farnold is a licensed drug and alcohol counselor. And what she will be doing is essentially she will be our Officer Adams, so to speak, in a sense, where when we come to contact with a drug-addled, addicted individual, whether it's because of a near overdose scenario, or whether it's a drug arrest or what have you, and we make a determination, we, the arresting officers, make a determination that there is a problem here. That person will be referred to Melissa Farnold through bail conditions. That person will be tied to a meeting with that drug and alcohol counselor. And during that process, Melissa Farnold will attempt an intervention. And that intervention may be something as simple as, hey, Megan, you have a problem. And we really need to discuss this problem. We need to get at this problem. Because, as my slides will reflect, there may be a real reason, a real solid reason. Maybe you're self-medicating because of an undiagnosed issue, and we need to get to the root of that. And maybe there's a mental illness issue that is going undiagnosed, or something else. But whatever it is, we need to get at the root of these problems. Now, we're not wholly qualified to delve into those areas. We're not. Wolfeboro Police Department isn't going to send me for a degree in psychology anytime soon.
Right.
Nor are they going to send me to medical school.
Right.
So we're going to use Melissa Fernald as essentially our agent to do that intervention. And the exciting thing is, in looking at the numbers being reported by Officer Adams, and I am spitballing here from his briefing, and I'm not sure if these are May numbers, he was briefing us, or June numbers, but when he briefed the Carroll County Chiefs of Police Association, he said that out of the 36 interventions that he had done personally, that 22 of those interventions had found their way into a drug treatment program. So almost 2/3.
That's amazing.
Yeah, those are great numbers.
Right.
And when we talk about getting at the addicts in a pipeline, this is exactly what I'm talking about. If we can divert them and get them into treatment, get them the help that they need, and get them clean, get them off of the heroin or the Oxycontin or the methadone or the Percocets or the diazepam or the Vicodin or the Valium or whatever they're addicted to, that is a beautiful thing. And that's what we think is part of the solution. That's part of the solution.
Now let me ask you this. So if they're having like 22, you know, successful going into treatment programs and this intervention, like, so now what is this initiative of incorporating, you know, and using this as an intervention as part of the bail conditions and teaming up together, what is that doing to the treatment centers? Is there enough support for that right now? There is, but admittedly, I feel like I hear stories of not enough beds, or you know, those types of things to be able to, you know, go that next step. I guess.
I think, well, certainly within New Hampshire, and listen, I'm an optimist, right? For me, the glass is always half full.
Absolutely.
I think we do have some issues in the state relative to treatment centers and drug and alcohol counselors and so forth and so on. But I think the good news here is that I don't know a single drug and alcohol counselor will say, come back tomorrow, I don't have time for you.
Right, absolutely.
They will not do that. They will not do that. And you know, just like, you know, when I was growing up and I went to a teacher and I said, hey, I'm having difficulty with math or English, I'd never had a teacher say, Dan, I don't have time for you, come back tomorrow. I've never had a teacher say that. I suspect that we will figure out a way through this, you know, but we've got to do something.
Right.
And so getting them into treatment, whether it's a faith-based system, whether it's a traditional residential program, or whether it's some other treatment option, is all we're looking at Melissa to do. She's going to do our intervention. She will get them, if they don't have insurance, she will get them signed up for insurance. She will get them entered into a program that is right for that individual, if they want it.
Right.
We're not forcing treatment on them, and that's something I want to make sure that our viewers really know. We're just offering the intervention. We're taking a different
You're taking a step towards an approach.
We are. It's exactly what we're doing. And what we're saying is, hey, you've got a problem, and you broke the law. We get that, and we'll deal with that down the road. But right now, you got a problem, so it's all about you. Let's get you into treatment. Do you want treatment? I think that we'll have similar statistics to Officer Adams' program. I suspect that we'll have about 2/3 will say, hey, I've been waiting for somebody to approach me. Yes, I don't want to be an addict, and so forth. And I really think that's what we're going to see. And we'll be able to capitalize on that and seize that initiative, especially after a near drug overdose, or we catch them at their worst with the needle in the arm, or you know, impaired in public, or whatever the case may be. When they're when their defenses are lowest, when they're at their worst, when they're on their way to jail, and then we can set the wheels in motion and get them the help that they need. Now, it's also important to know that nothing in this program is meant to say we're going to be soft on drug abusers, we're going to be soft on drug dealers. Nothing like that at all. We're still police officers. We still have sworn duties to uphold. We will prosecute them, and that is important to know, that if you do get caught with drugs, if you're caught using or abusing drugs, you're caught in possession of drugs, or you're caught dealing drugs, yes, you're going to be prosecuted. And you know what? Expect to be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. But in that process, where that's where it would begin and end in the past.
Right, black and
Now,
white.
now
there's
we're
another
saying,
moving
hey,
piece.
you've
Right.
committed some bad acts,
Right.
and we're going to deal with those bad acts in turn.
Right.
They'll be dealt with
You
in
need to be
turn
held
through the
accountable.
normal process. You'll be
Right.
held accountable, and that's part of the treatment, if you will. And follow me, because we're going to say, hey, this is all about you right now. You're going into treatment. We want you to go into treatment. You've got a problem, and that's where Melissa comes in with her skills and education and certificates and licenses and all the training that she has. She'll come in and she'll be able to say, yeah, you've got a real drug problem, or you have a mental illness, or you have an undiagnosed medical issue that we need to get at. But admitting that you've got a problem and admitting ownership of the problem is the first step. The most successful interventions and the most successful recoveries that I have seen always center around the individual saying, you know what, I committed that, I did this, I'm wrong, this is my fault, I own this, and I'm going to deal with it. Right. And that really is the first step, whether it's an alcohol addiction or whether it's a drug addiction. And so the person will be held accountable for their bad act or bad acts, whatever they may be. But we'll deal with it. Now, the impact to Wolfeboro, and why is this important? And because, one, it's outside the box thinking. Number two, clearly, the old tried and true method, if you will, for lack of a better term, of seeing the drug user, drug abuser, the drug pusher, arresting that individual, putting them through the system, ain't working.
Right.
It ain't working.
Right.
Okay, because if it was working, we'd be stopping the problem. We've been doing this, since the late '60s, and one thing is for certain, it ain't working.
Right.
So we've got to do something else. We've got to try a different approach. Because, like I said earlier, and caveating what the Chief of Bartlett said, we ain't going to arrest our way out of this problem. It's just too big. So the impact directly to the town of Wolfeboro is, and I want folks to understand, this is what drives your street crime, is drug abuse, alcohol abuse. This is what drives your street crime. 90% of our crimes that we respond to on a daily basis, 90%, in some flavor or fashion, are tied directly or indirectly to a substance abuse issue. Whether it's alcoholism, whether it's drug abuse, whether it's theft or fraud or deception or what have you, it's drug abuse. Drugs are somehow connected to that. Either they're trying to get more money to support their habit, or they get into a domestic violence assault with their spouse or significant other because of drugs or alcohol abuse. This is what is really driving the crime. So it's very expensive. Okay, this is very expensive. And I don't mean from the standpoint of enforcement. I mean from the standpoint of not enforcing. Okay, drugs are what's driving our street crime. 10% of the time, we deal with a case that isn't motivated in some flavor or fashion by drug abuse. 10% of the time.
Right. So the other 90.
The other 90, and I think you'll find the statistics the same in Conway. I've had in-depth discussions with their detectives on this issue, in other jurisdictions as well. So it's important to understand what drives street crime. This shouldn't come as a revelation. I think the Nixon administration, and we spoke about that.
Right, we talked about we
spoke
way back when.
You know, they were dealing with the same issues, and the statistics were equally as high.
Right.
And so nothing has changed. Nothing has changed. What I think the difference is in this is that we're emphasizing a whole of society approach. This is a whole of society problem. When we went to war in World War I and when we went to war in World War II, we mobilized an entire society. There were ration cards. You were encouraged to go grow victory gardens to help support yourself. The Boy Scouts, the Girl Scouts, the 4-H clubs went on metal drives where they collected aluminum and iron and steel.
It was all for a bigger
This was
thing.
all for the war effort.
Right.
You know, and if you doubt what I am saying, go down to the Red Museum and take a look.
Yeah. No,
all right, and they have a victory garden out back, and they have examples of ration cards and so forth and so on. We won those wars, but they were national efforts. But yet, in 1973, somebody said, "Hey, we're going to declare war on drugs." And oh yeah, by the way, police, you guys got this. This is all you. This is all you. You got it. And they really, I think, missed the boat. And people say, "Hey, law enforcement really has lost the war on drugs. We lost the war on drugs. The war on drugs was lost by law enforcement. Whatever. The point is that it really wasn't wholly a law enforcement effort. It was a whole of society effort. You can't have the rest of society not getting involved in this effort. It makes no sense, because law enforcement cannot do this by itself. We don't spend time with your children. You do. This solution to the problem begins with the family.
Right.
And it transcends into the schools and into the community, into the social groups, and
right,
so
which
forth
speaks
and
to
so on.
that third piece of education. You know, and it's one of the reasons why you and I are here, and we're putting forth this initiative to share with the community. And certainly we were talking about this earlier too. Like, there seems to be, from what I understand, like there's just, and I think I probably had my own enlightenment too. I'll fully admit that, and that is there is a veil there that says this is going on out here.
Right.
Like, it's not in my bubble. It's not in my world of driving through town and doing all this, you know, like living my normal everyday life. It's not affecting me. It's not within my realm. It's out there. It's all happening out there. I'm reading it in the paper, and that's fine, and you know, I'm seeing it on the news and all that sort of thing, but it really is right next to you.
It is indeed.
You know, it's really just so much more invasive than people realize.
It is indeed.
And like I said, I think I came into my own awareness of that, you know, which is one of the reasons why I'm here. So, yeah, I think it's really important that people understand that it really is, problem's not the right word, but I guess it is, you know, I mean, it is a problem that has to be addressed, because it's trickling down and it's starting to affect everything.
It will indeed. You're absolutely correct. We live in a very beautiful and a bucolic area, and it's difficult to think of a heroin problem or epidemic as we're driving down Route 28, or we're heading out onto 109 North, and we look to our left, and we have the beautiful lakes and the sky and the coves and the bays and so forth that we pass along the way, and it really is difficult to think that we have this problem here in our own community, but we do. State statistics coming out of Jack Womack's office suggest
And Jack Womack
is the drug czar. He is the head of the company.
Is that really how you guys refer to him?
Yes, it is. It is. He is the drug czar. He is the gentleman, and that term is misleading. He is the gentleman who's been appointed by Governor Hassan to head up the state's counter-drug effort. So think about that for a minute. A year ago,
someone appointed to address this.
A year ago.
Yeah.
A year ago, we didn't have that position on the governor's cabinet, if you will, the governor's staff. We do now. Think about that for a minute.
Right.
Okay, so that's kind of important. So, you know, in terms of the national drug czar, you know, we have a state drug czar. The officer charged with the counter-drug effort in the state is Jack Womack, and Wozniak, and he and I were talking just the other day, and I was briefing him on our Wolfeboro initiative, and we were sharing statistics and numbers and thoughts and so forth on strategies, and one of his concerns, and as one of the concerns of my wife, who is the prenatal healthcare manager for the Central New Hampshire VNA and Hospice, is that the incredible number of babies being born, not just in Carroll County, not just in Wolfeboro, not just in Carroll County, but in the state, who have already been exposed.
Right. Right. And they're
not
born yet.
And they're not born yet.
Yeah.
But they've already been exposed to heroin, or to diazepam, or to marijuana, or to some other controlled substance. This is not good. And we're seeing these children who are being born now in the various hospitals throughout the state, which automatically predisposes them now, makes them more likely to become drug addicts later on. This is really, really troubling. In 5 years' time, when those children who are born to these parents who have permissive or semi-permissive attitudes about drug use, who have used while they were pregnant, and the mom, whether directly or indirectly, whether it was secondhand smoke or was smoke from crystal methamphetamine or some other intoxicant, and now the child has been exposed, the child is predisposed, the child will begin to manifest issues in school. We're going to be wondering why we have such a propensity of young men and women coming into our schools who are ADHD, who are hyperactive, who have learning disabilities, who just simply cannot seem to understand. And these will be tied directly back to poor choices made by parents earlier on. There are a host of health maladies associated with these drugs. Not simply from what I just described, but other things like cancers and like developmental issues and so forth. We don't know the second and third order effects of these bad decisions. This problem is so new that we haven't had, medical science hasn't had an opportunity to study it. The empirical data isn't there. I can tell you that looking at this as a law enforcement officer and looking at it from family, dealing with families that I've systemically dealt with throughout my 19 years in law enforcement here in Wolfeboro, I can follow the trend. I can connect the dots and say, "Oof, I saw that one coming." You know, I dealt with the dad when he was a young man. Now I'm dealing with his children, and it's clear to me that there are issues here that are a lot deeper than drug use. And that's kind of what I'm getting at. We will see this manifest or begin to manifest within 5 years as the children that are born to these drug-dependent parents now start entering the schools. And that's troubling, number one. And number two, we're on the cusp in this state of you know, legalizing marijuana. There are initiatives forth, you know, we've already passed legislation dealing with medical marijuana. And we're going to be increasing the supply of that intoxicant. And when you increase supply of an intoxicant like that into society, you will increase demand because it's addictive. It is addictive. Whether we want to say it's addictive psychologically or we want to say it's addictive physically, who cares? Right. It's addictive. And I'm not saying that there is a direct causation between those who use marijuana at an early age and harder drugs later on, but clearly the evidence is there and suggests that there is a strong correlation that young abusers of marijuana will later turn to heroin, cocaine, and other drugs. So there's a difference. I'm not saying there's a causation, but I am saying there's a correlation, and I think that's well defined. I don't think there's any mystery there. I don't think legalized marijuana for New Hampshire is good, and because it leads to this. It leads to treatment issues when we're dealing with combating the harder drugs like heroin or opiate abuse.
Right. So you're saying it's all connected. You know, it's so complex, and there's so many different pieces. And then the other interesting thing that I read in your PowerPoint slides is that, you know, really this is not an instant fix. There is no, you know, like I was a little bit surprised to read that you were looking at 10 to 30 years before
this is a generational issue.
There's a change.
And you know, let's talk about that for a second, because we as Americans, and I like to say this often, we as Americans are looking for the immediate gratification on a solution to a problem. We're looking for that quick fix. We live in a fast food rap video culture.
I was just going to say, we are instant. We are an
Absolutely.
instant society.
And that's how we're hardwired.
Right.
Like it or not, that's who we are. We're very different from our European brethren, and we want it. We want it now, and it better be there. And the problem is, with this, as you said, this is a generational fix. This is 30 years, but we've got to start now. Because maybe in 30 years we'll have a handle on it, but this is not. There is no silver bullet to this that's going to kill the werewolf, and there is no stake through the vampire's heart that's going to kill this beast. This is a long-term solution.
I forgot about the zombies. I'm kidding.
Yeah. But yeah, there is no silver bullet to this. There is no quick fix. There is no magic elixir that you're going to drink that is going to cure this problem.
Yeah, I feel like it's going to ebb and flow. You know, like I said, and the last time that we spoke, you know, yes, it's prevalent in the media right now, and you know, all these initiatives and all these things are happening, you know, statewide, countrywide, whatever. And it'll probably, as things do die down and go under the radar again, it's not that it's not being addressed, but, you know, and then it's going to come back up in the media again, you know, like, and I feel like it's just going to go on that rise and fall.
And
but really, it's a streamlining thing. It's always happening, and it's always in need of being addressed.
It is indeed, and the thing that I want to speak to real quick, because I can see some people out there saying, well, why don't we just legalize it all? And please understand, we're not talking...
Isn't there a country that has...
Yes, there are. We can talk about that, and we can talk about their miserable failures. But and since you brought it up, we will.
That's a whole other program.
But the long and short of it is that we're not talking about this in terms of a law enforcement problem wholly.
Right.
You know, we're talking about it's a societal issue, and if you legalize this, the problem still exists.
Right.
We still have people dying. We still have people addicted, and we still have, you know. So we're not making an arrest. Okay, big deal. Right. You know, I'll go do something else. I mean, I'll go do credit card fraud or something else like that.
Right.
We're not talking. But you see, that's what I'm getting at. And so because sometimes the argument, I guess, well, geez, why don't we just leave?
So you legalize it, and your arrests go down, and that's...
Yeah, big deal. It doesn't solve the problem. It kicks the can down the road.
Or something. Yeah.
That's all it does. It's not. You know what I'm getting at? This is not a law. I'm not here because this is a law enforcement problem.
Right.
I'm not here because of that. I'm here because we have a societal issue.
Mm-hmm.
It's huge. It's a huge societal issue, and that's what people have to understand. And I'm not here saying, oh, this is an expensive problem and I need more money. No, it's an expensive problem, and society is going to need a lot of money to fix it.
Right.
Because we
need to take those dollars and put them in appropriate places to be able to.
Right. We need prevention. We need treatment.
Right.
You need education.
Mm-hmm.
That's what you need. I will deal with the leftover.
Right.
But right now, these two lines of effort, the top one on the slide and the bottom one on the slide, that's what's really, you know, if I were to proportionalize those arrows, you'd see, you know, a big fat law enforcement arrow and two very thin prevention, education, and treatment arrows trying to get at this problem. And what I said to you earlier before is, look, not one is any better than the other. There's not one that's a higher priority.
Yep.
They're all equal and measured. They're all equal and measured.
It's an ensemble.
We got to get at it. And I know people don't want to hear that this is going to be expensive, and I'm not talking from a law enforcement perspective. I'm talking a whole society perspective.
Right.
And it'll be a lot more expensive if we don't deal with it. If we deal with it in the future and not now, because by putting off the problem, all you do is you kick that can down the road. We've got to deal with this now. These are the discussions that we have to have. So that's why this program is good.
Yeah, well, and we're going to keep going and talking about it. Our hope, obviously, is to have Melissa come in.
Absolutely.
So people know who she is and what she's doing.
And how she's interacting with us.
And how she's implementing it. And I think her perspective is important because she really is that middle person between getting the people to treatment and the initiative that you guys are putting forth.
She is.
That's so important.
And I want to make one thing perfectly clear. She is not a law enforcement officer.
No.
She is not. She is not interested in getting at, where did you get the drugs, and then sending us a secret report. She's not about that. She's all about the individual. You have a problem. You need treatment.
Right.
What will work for you? Let's talk about this. And then trying to get at what is the underlying issue relative to your drug abuse. Why are you a drug addict? Is it a home issue? Is it an undiagnosed medical issue or something along? She's about dealing with the whole person. She's not about law enforcement. She will be sending us no reports, and that's important to know. She will be sending us no reports. We don't want reports from her. We don't. We want to know how you're doing.
Right.
How's person X doing? Good? Great. That's where it begins and ends. You know, she's not sending us any reports. We're not using this as a conduit to get secret police intelligence, because I know what some people are going to say. She will not be giving us anything we'll use against that person in a court of law. That's not what this is about.
Right.
You know, I make the arrest. I'll deal with that in court based off of my observations. And it's interesting because a couple of weeks ago I had an arrest for cocaine. And the young man said to me, are you going to read me my Miranda warning advisements? And no, I am not. Nor do I plan to. Well, why not? I caught you red-handed. I don't need to. I'm going to further protect your constitutional rights by not advising you your Miranda warning advisements, because I'm not going to interview you and I'm not going to question you. quite frankly, I
It's
don't care
right
what you have
here.
to say.
Right.
Yeah, I've got all my evidence. I don't need any more.
Right.
And he had a hard time dealing with that. He had a hard time comprehending that.
Mhm.
Yeah, I'm not going to ask you any questions. There's nothing I want to ask you. I have you red-handed.
Right.
So the point is, to that little story is, when I make an arrest, I know
Yeah.
probable cause. I know proof beyond a reasonable doubt. I know it when I see it. You know, we don't need Melissa for that. That is
Right.
not what Melissa
Right.
is doing.
No, she's another. She's another piece
she-
of the puzzle.
She is the treatment aspect of getting at this problem, and
Right.
that's important to know.
Yeah, no, and I think, and I'm looking forward to having her in so that she can talk about the importance of that and helping people understand exactly what she is, and not
Absolutely.
just you speaking about it.
Right, because you want to hear it from her,
Mhm,
and
absolutely.
I agree with that, and
Absolutely.
she'll be here to do that. And just so you know, we are still working out the MOU, the Memorandum of Understanding of how our two organizations are going to work together.
Right.
I fully expect that there'll be some growing pains in here, and we'll work through those growing pains.
Mhm.
And will this be a perfect program? And in terms of an initiative, will this be a perfect initiative? No.
Right.
But I think it'll be a good 80% solution, and we'll get to that 100%. But we're going to put it in place now because unfortunately, Megan, people are suffering and people are dying.
Yeah.
And I could wait another 6 weeks or 6 months and say, nah, I've got the perfect program. But no, because I truly care about people in my community, and I want to be a part of the solution and not part of the problem.
Mhm.
And that's why we're moving forward right now. So
Right.
we will work through the speed bumps, so to speak, no pun
Right.
intended. We will work through those issues to get to the final objective.
Right.
Remember, I'm an optimist. The glass is always half full.
Mhm.
I'm sure somebody will say, well, you can't do that, Captain, or you can't do this. Well, you know what? Don't tell me why I can't. Tell me how I can.
Mhm.
Be part of the solution, not part of the problem. And we're keeping a good attitude about it. I think the numbers are encouraging, coming from Officer Eric Adams in Laconia PD, and I'm excited about it. And I think it really does speak to community policing at its finest.
Mhm. Well, and I can't thank you enough for coming in and sort of shedding some light on this. I think it's important for
Thank
people
you for
to know,
having me.
and it gives people a chance to be able to approach you and ask
Of
more
course.
questions about it and understand. So.
And I want them to, and
Yeah.
that's not hyperbole. If you see me out on the road, you see me out in the street, come and talk to me about this.
Right. Absolutely. I do all the time.
You do indeed.
All right. Well, I look forward to talking to you again.
Excellent. Thank you very
much,
much.
Dean.